Win in your mindset through one mindset shift. And I don't know when that will happen or how that will happen. But when you set this intention, your aha moment may come during the session, it may come towards the end of the session, or maybe after the session, but it will come. So set that intention. And if you're with me on this, please type in success in the chat box. I know I'm making you type in a lot, but that's what's going to cause the energy explosion. Awesome. Now, the question is like, how many of you agree that it's become a very crowded marketplace, especially since 2020? It's very, very visible. If you agree, please type in yes in the chat box. And would you agree that it's getting harder to stand out as a business, as an entrepreneur? It's getting harder. Awesome. And Aditya is not here, but you see the question on the slide. Would you agree that digital marketers have sprouted like babies in the market? If yes, please type in yes. And if you feel that it's true for your business as well, type in yes in the chat box. Now, if you see the background slides, I don't know how many of you can see the pictures or the images in the background. Some of these babies are newborn, if you can see towards the left. Some of these babies are happy babies because they've thrived during the crisis. And some of these have not been very happy as well. And the last one, you can see this little baby holding a hand. And those are businesses who are guided by mentors, right? So they have a sense of direction. So my question to you is, how many of you would love to lead with opportunity in this crowded marketplace? If yes, please type in yes, or love it. Love to lead in the marketplace, LTL. So the next thing which I really want to say is that, with your permission, I'm going to share a little about myself, my journey, my lessons, and maybe you might be able to draw a few lessons from that for yourself if you can relate to it. So if that's okay with you, please do type in yes. And I'm perhaps not giving you the option to not be okay with it. Yes. So I'm going to talk a little about my background. So like most people, I bought into the idea that, traditional education or traditional academic success is a key indicator and crucial to success in life. And I studied at the LSE. I studied at Lady Shri Ram College for Women, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I'm going back to the 21 lessons from the book, which you just mentioned. One of them, you said, is schools need to start teaching us how to think and not what to think. And while these schools did teach me how to think, both these schools actually are entrenched in thought leadership and has helped me build a network of thought leaders. They gave me credibility, helped me build a personal brand, opened my mind to a world of limitless possibilities. But what did not happen was that it did not teach me to cope with real world challenges that we all face. Real world challenges in your career, real world challenges with your team, real world challenges in business development. So how many of you agree with me when I say that traditional academic education is only a part of the puzzle? Important, but only a part. If you do, please do type in yes in the chat box. Awesome. A tiny part, says Aman. Okay. Now, what happened next was I started my career with a short stint at the World Trade Organization, where I assisted the TRIPS Council with policy making, and I interacted with diplomatic leaders from different countries. I then went on to AZB and Partners, one of India's top law firms. I spent almost a decade at AZB. And that's where I advised a lot of global and domestic corporates on M&A deals and other corporate deals. And that taught me a lot about the challenges which leaders face, which teams face, which organizations face. So a lot of my experience has been experiential, so to speak. And what AZB did was, for a certain time frame, for a little over a year, they seconded me to the Boeing company uh, to handle the roles and duties of country council for India. And what that essentially meant was, on secondment, I had to advise Boeing on all its India legal operations, work with the leadership team in India, and work closely with teams in the US and the UK, with my mentor in Dubai, who was handling the India, Middle East, and Africa region. Um, Again, what did it teach me? It taught me through experience. My challenges, the challenges of many others. I had amazing mentors as well, and they had great leadership styles, and I learned a lot by observing them. Um, but there were times where opportunities came to me very easily. I was an opportunity magnet at times, but more often than not, I felt very, very, very stuck. And how many of you can relate to that? How many of you have felt in your career or in your business that there are times where opportunities have come easily, and at times you've been very, very stuck? And those are the times where you know you're stuck, but you don't know what to do to get unstuck. If you agree with me, awesome. Vikas is honest, he says several times. I love your honesty. Um, on and off, often. I love the honesty and the vulnerability of this group. Thank you so much. So, therefore, how many of you do agree that real world experiences are the second part of the puzzle? If you do agree, please type in. Awesome. I'm getting a lot of yeses and participation. 100% says Sankal. So now here's what happened to me was, I realized that I was obviously missing something in the puzzle, because traditional academic education wasn't enough. Real world experiences did teach me, but they taught me by making me crawl through the school of hard knocks, walk through the university of life, and it was tough learning. And I didn't enjoy walking through the school of hard knocks. So, what I did was, I decided to bridge the gap by investing a lot of time, money, effort in my learning, by learning from mentors who could teach me real world wisdom. So, what did I learn? I learned about operational leadership. I learned about influence building. I learned about business growth and business models that work. I learned about networking. I learned about online digital coaching, learned about coaching models that work, which don't just give you motivation, which of course is a part of leadership, but it's not the whole thing. So it teaches you techniques and strategies through which you can achieve transformation in whoever you are coaching so that they get results. And I also studied the science of energy. So over the last couple of years, I am also an associate certified pranic healer. And I say that only to tell you that I have seen the power of how energy can impact leaders, their teams, their business, and their organizations. And I went one step further, and I set up the Leader by Design talk show because I was hungry to learn from people who have walked the path. And as I interview everyone, I'm learning every single day leadership best practices, team best practices, organization best practices, and what it takes to succeed in the real world. So, how many of you agree that leaders are learners? I think you all do, because you do book studies every week, you're showing up every week, and I love the structure of the way you conduct your meetings. So, you are already leaders who are learners. Yes, Aman, there's no way around it. So now what did all of this learning do for me? It gave me and opened up multiple requests to collaborate, including from big brands. I had multiple expressions of interest from organizations for customized solutions, which included big brands. I had several requests for speaking or writing opportunities, such as this one. I was featured as an influencer in an online magazine, and I got some awards and recognition. And let me tell you that all of this happened in the last 1.5 years. Yes, which means a large part of it was during the lockdown. So, how many of you would agree or like to be an opportunity magnet even during a crisis? Would you like to be an opportunity magnet? If yes, please type in yes. I can see Sankalp raising his hands. Awesome. So, what to my mind, the dark cloud in the life of a business owner or an entrepreneur is not getting an opportunity, not being able to attract a client, not being able to make a sale, and not being able to convert, and thereby not being able to make money. That, to my mind, is a dark cloud. And yes, this crisis has been a dark cloud for many, but there have also been entrepreneurs who have managed to lead with opportunity, which is the silver lining. Now, I don't know if your personal preference is silver, gold, platinum, diamond. Choose what you want and learn to lead with opportunity and get whichever one of these you choose to have. So if you like diamond, type in diamond in the chat box. If you like platinum, type in platinum. If you like gold, type in gold. And if you like silver, type in silver. Yes? Platinum, says Sankalp. Okay. So now my mission and my why is to build 100,000 inspirational leaders who power their team, career, and business, produce impactful results through strategic leadership. And I'm going to talk more about that later. I know that Reciprocity is well acquainted with the concept because you spoke about strategy and execution in your last Alchemy. Yes? So as I'm talking to you, you don't need to voice out your mission right now. I want you to be thinking, what is your mission? I know you're all seasoned entrepreneurs. You probably have already delved deep into what your mission is. But now is the time, maybe today, spend a few minutes to fine tune and refine that mission so that your focus and your clarity is absolutely clear and you know what to focus on and what not to. Now, the crisis, we had the coronavirus, the pandemic. Before we could react to that, we suddenly have bird flu. We have economic challenges, and locusts swarmed in 2020. And Down to Earth magazine says that 2020 experienced the largest number of natural disasters from any other year in the 21st century. So the question is, what's next? Maybe dinosaurs from Jurassic Park. I don't exactly mean that, but what I really mean is do expect the unexpected and be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And what did it mean for business and the business challenges? I've already touched upon that, but I would like to say that it's visibly increased competition. It's made it harder to stand out in this crowded market. It's therefore reduced the ability to generate opportunities, sales, profits, income, and it's also simultaneously increased expense overheads. If you agree, please type in agree in the chat box. At an individual level, thank you, Chavi, thank you, Aman, thank you, Ritesh, thank you, Vikas. Now, at an individual level, three main challenges: mindset challenges, EQ, and when I talk about EQ here, I talk about two kinds of EQ, and a lack of boundaries. And I'm going to go into each one of them. So when I talk about mindset, I'm going to talk about the scarcity mindset. Now, that existed even before the crisis, but it's become more pronounced during the crisis. So when I talk about the scarcity mindset, it means when someone is going to a service provider, that scarcity mindset is not paying full value to the service provider. Maybe wanting free services or maybe wanting heavily discounted services. So that's the scarcity mindset when you're going to a service provider. From a business deal perspective, what does that mean? That means that you might get business propositions, which are business propositions which are win-win in name, but not in substance. So you will probably get people approaching you saying that, hey, why don't we do this together? And it's more about what they can get from you than rather what they can give to you. And that is a scarcity mindset. And based on my experience with M&A deals, I've really noticed that M&A business deals, a lot like marriage, if both don't win, they break down. Things don't go through. So if you agree with me, type in agree in the chat box. Awesome. Now, when it comes to EQ, we've had, I would say there are two kinds of EQ. There's emotional quotient, we know of that. And then you have the energy quotient, which a lot of people may be subconsciously aware of, but they don't really focus on. And what the lockdown did, maybe particularly because we weren't able to step out very often. And if you stepped out, you were damned. If you didn't step out, you were damned. And that affected people emotionally. That affected people's energy. It affected people in terms of anxiety, panic attacks, depression, overwhelm, jealousy for competitors, fear of competitors, and desperation, maybe more pushy salesy behavior, more pushy networking behavior. And we've experienced that online as well. So if you've experienced that online and been at the receiving end of that, please type in yes in the chat box. And when we speak about a lack of boundaries, how many of you have experienced a lack of boundaries between workspace, home space, work connects, personal connects? If you've experienced this, please type in yes in the chat box. And how many of you would agree that this blurring of boundaries has led to an unstructured day which has impacted productivity at an individual level? Maybe not for you, maybe for you, maybe for someone else. But if you have seen this happen with someone else, even, please type in yes in the chat box. Holistically, yes. Okay, that's an interesting one. Now, what is the shift that we need to see? So from a mindset perspective is moving to an abundance mindset. So when it comes to going to a service provider, it means paying full value to the service provider. It also means making sure you're always upskilling and upgrading your learning, because that's what is going to help you adapt, evolve, and rapidly rise above your competition if they're not evolving as fast as you. And when it comes to business deal, it means that if you are the one who's going with a business proposition, please make sure the other party is also winning. And if you're at the receiving end of it, make sure that you safeguard your interests. At an EQ level, what does it mean? At an EQ level, and I'm going to touch upon competition and competitors because that has been a predominant feature where people are very worried about competition. How will I stand out in this crowded marketplace? And here's what I would like to say. People are even worried about the fact that people are copying them or copying their ideas, their thoughts, their products. And here's what I'd like to say is that copying is something which will always be there. You can protect yourself through maybe trademark or copyright, but it protects you to a certain degree. Instead of focusing and wasting your time and energy on your competitors and what they're doing, because they're actually wasting time copying you. And I say it's wasting because in my mind, it's harder to copy than to be original. It takes more time to copy than to be original, right? So instead of wasting your time, energy on fearing the competition, being jealous about competition, or being worried that they're copying you, focus on rapidly evolving yourself, rapidly evolving your teams to adapt to the responses that the market needs, rapidly evolving your product and your services so that it's a no-brainer for any customer to come to you. If you agree with me, please type in yes in the chat box. And the last thing would be to set boundaries to enhance productivity. So set boundaries with your work connects, with your personal connects, so that you can give the best of yourself to both sets of people. And remove distractors. I know that Reciprocity is giving very interesting insights by watching Netflix on the right kind of subjects. But there's been an increase in Netflix addiction during the lockdown for a lot of people. Remove that as a distractor. Remove addiction to phones and WhatsApp maybe as a distractor. And when you start building that practice in, also try and build in a very structured day flow. It's become harder now, I think, with working from home. So build in that structure. And when you're doing that, there will be some people who understand, some people who don't understand. And that's absolutely fine, because you have to decide where your focus really lies. So there are 5 C's that I'd like you to look at, which is firstly, have clarity in your goals, direction, and action. Have consistent action to work towards your goals. Create value. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable and the uncertain. And create opportunity for yourself and anyone you're interacting with. Now, I'm going to go to the second lesson, which you mentioned earlier in the 21st lessons for the 21st century, which is we don't know, we think we do. And a lot of what I'm sharing, I know that you already know at some level. But how many of you would agree that just even listening to what you already know in this structured way is building a deeper level of awareness? If you agree with me, please type in yes in the chat box. Awesome. And I have 4 focus areas for you, which is build a leadership mindset. Move to an abundant mindset. Don't have a scarcity mindset. The second is build on leadership strategies, become an opportunity magnet where your clients come to you, your customers gravitate to you. They can't help but do that. Okay? And build on your leadership people set. As entrepreneurs, you no doubt would be interacting with clients, with your networks, with communities, and with your teams. And if you don't know how to interact with people or manage people, or if you slip up in that, you will not get opportunities, right? And there are many mistakes people do make unknowingly. And then build on your leadership skill set, a large part of which is communication. Persuasion is a communications leadership skill set. Negotiation is a communication leadership skill set. So how much to speak, what to speak, where to speak, whom to speak. And yeah, I'll get back to how much to speak, because I think Sankalp has sent me a reminder, 5 minutes to close, right? So that's also an important leadership skill set. And as a closing point, the one thing I would say crisis has made me realize is there's something called the FLQ, which is the flexibility quotient or adaptability quotient. And if you don't adapt to the business, to the world, to the technology, to the online needs, it's going to be difficult for you to evolve rapidly and then stay apart from your competition. So how many of you would agree that at this point of time, particularly, you need to have a high degree of FLQ to succeed or lead in a crisis? If you agree, please type in agree, and thank you, Vikas. Awesome. And as I'm speaking, I really want you to think, what is the FLQ you need for your business? Okay, so you can make a mental note of that right now. At my end, I did a lot of one-to-one coachings in the last 4 years. I curated the leadership program for IMT Ghaziabad for corporate and business leaders there. And one of the things I realized that I want to pivot from that customized solution model to an online group coaching model on strategic leadership, which is going to be I would say, problem solving mode, because I believe it's not traditional education that works. It's education which helps resolve problems and challenges that work. And I believe in the power of technology and automation. So that's part of my pivot, where one person is equal to 1,000 or equal to 10,000 or 100,000 because of the power of automation, so that you can impact many more people. And I will be setting to launch the strategic leadership blueprint later this year. And it will lead, individuals from leadership, from the blueprint to intensity to mastery. Um, Now, before I end, I'm going to also tell you that knowledge is one thing, but we know a lot of things, but do we really do it? Like, exercise is good for you, but are you doing it? Right? Eating chola bhatura is not great for your health, but you might eat it. Okay. Um, and there are so many other things you do. You might want to wake up at 5 a.m., join the 5 a.m. club like I do, but I might not always do it, right? So I know it, but am I really living it? That's a question. And therefore, how many of you would agree that despite me sharing a lot of things that you might already know, how much of it are you living? That's something to reflect on. And how many of you would agree that if you were to implement or apply or live it in action, it would create different results for you? If you agree, please type in agree in the chat box. And how many of you would agree that today, after this session is over, you might be like inspired for like this teeny weeny minute. Maybe, I'm hoping you were inspired. Okay, I don't even know if you are, but if you are, maybe that inspiration is going to be short-lived. Okay, maybe the aha moment is going to be short-lived. Maybe you're going to walk back home and you're going to forget that someone like Namrata came, gave this keynote on the silver lining for leadership in crisis, and you'll forget about it. And next Monday, new keynote, new speaker, new insights, and let's forget about implementation, right? So the part of the environment, very, very important, which I know you realize, which is why you congregate in this network. Now, to help people make sure that they stay immersed in that energy of thought leadership, I have created the Leader by Design Hub. At this point, it's just a community of individuals who are gathered together in a private Facebook group. So I would invite you to that. I'll share the link to that. Could I give each one of you 30 seconds to think of what was your one key takeaway, what shifted for you? And I'd love to hear from you on what is your one key takeaway.
Yes, Namrata, I formed it while you were talking. It became clear to me. I wonder if you want me to put this on the chat box or would you like us to speak
You can
it?
verbalize it as well. I would love to hear that.
Okay, so for me, it was the realization that it takes longer to copy than be original, and the amount of negative energy we waste in trying to, build up, build ourselves up against the competition when we feel from a negative mind, lack of resources in the mindset, what you call, what's the word, scarcity mindset, because that really promotes everything into the negative zone. The scarcity mindset leads us to bargain, to argue with the service provider, which we unabashedly do. And that scarcity leads us to a feeling of lack of abundance, which then permeates into the other person and to us and to an environment. So we have to focus on abundance, that everything is going to come. If that's going to happen, then don't cut corners. Don't try to steal a few pennies from the service provider. Take the abundance mindset home and remember that it takes longer to copy. It's more difficult to copy than to be original. It may be easier to innovate and move forward. That's my take.
Lovely. Thank you so
And
much.
Amrita, sorry to interrupt you, but in the interest of time, we just have time for a few questions right now.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
so
Go
if
ahead.
members, if anybody has questions, let's do that first. And you can share your thoughts with Namrata on the chat. Anybody has questions?
Sorry if I gobbled up the time. I'm impressed with your talk here.
No, no, no. If you have no questions, Kanchan, you have a thought? Aman, go ahead.
Thank you for keynote. The copying thing really hit home. Though we know we create our own designs, we know they do get copied, but we're getting used to the fact that they will get copied and we're creating new ones. Secondly, the point about exercise, I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I have started irregular, but I think after this, I will make this regular. The 5 a.m. club trying to wake.
Great. Thank you, Aman. Kanchan, do you have something to say?
Yes, absolutely.
My hand going up.
I think there is some issue with the network because the sounds are really wavering. Okay, but what I wanted to say was, Namrata, what I really liked and one of my major takeaways and something that I personally believe in is that this crisis has actually given all of us a huge, not just silver lining, but a gold lining. Because the 3 points that you bring out, that is mindset, EQ, and the lack of boundaries. And I take lack of boundaries in a very positive way because for our business, that is reciprocity. I would say blurring of boundaries because it gives us access to people from all over the world. We are not limited to the Delhi NCR any longer. So that is a huge for us. And yes, EQ in terms of emotional and energy quotient, that's a huge one because although yes, we have all been going through these various emotional churns and also the reason for why we wanting this alchemy to be on the similar subject and topic, but it's also given us time to reflect and look inside, and not just inside, to look around people who are very close to us, who we generally tend to not look at because we're so busy with our day-to-day lives, and also tells us that they are the silver linings of our lives. And mindset obviously is a huge one, not just scarcity, but in every which way, that it's the mind that actually governs everything that we do. So thank you so much for just reiterating these few things for us, and they are huge takeaways for me to just tell me that we are on the right track, we're on the right path, and there is nothing known as a crisis. Every crisis comes with something good. So I don't know if you guys are aware of that in places like Orissa, Calcutta, and all these places, there is this author who's by the name of Sainath, who's written this book, who says everybody loves a great cyclone because that is when they get a chance to make a lot of money because of so much aid and everything comes. So it just reiterates the fact that every crisis has a silver lining with it. So yeah, thank you so much for this fabulous.